Thank you.
Ms. Malliotakis.
On the bill, Mr. Speaker.
On the bill, Ms. Malliotakis.
Thank you. As we finalize the budget and we're deciding what money we're spending our taxpayer money on, I think it's important to note that we continue this trend of kicking the can down the road and issuing more and more debt every year. New York State is the second most indebted state in the nation, only after the state of California. Debt service costs have nearly doubled over the past decade. And every year we come here and we have this debt service bill. And what we see is, while we continue to pay debt service, the debt actually never goes down. And a matter of fact, with the $10 billion that we're going to be putting in and authorizing today, we're going to see the debt increase, or another $6 billion being issued. And of the $52.8 billion in state-related debt, only $3.5 billion is voter approved. And so when we look at something like the School Bonds Act that was passed, and it was voter approved, which would be $2 billion, we can't even issue that because we are spending money and issuing debt continuously on our own without the approval of the voters. And so I think that's something that should be certainly concerning to the voters of the state of New York, the taxpayers of the state of New York, and for those who are here today, because we're not just talking about the $52.8 billion state-related debt. We're also not even including in that number the $262 billion. $262 billion that we have in debt from our public authorities. And of course, one would argue, well, we're not responsible for that, but we are responsible for that. And I know we've had that debate in the past about whether the taxpayers are responsible for that debt, and they certainly are. Because if the public authorities default, the taxpayers are going to have to pick up the tab. And so I think that's something that we need to note as we continue this budget process. We're deciding what we're going to spend money on. We're deciding on debt limits and caps. Because as of right now, we are headed to meet the cap, or at least be very close to it, by the year 2020. And that's not really fiscally responsible. And it's not what we should be doing for our children, our grandchildren, and for the future generations of this state. And again, going back to this, when you think about, I'm going to end with how I began, which is New York State is the second most indebted state in the nation. Okay? That is something that we need to be responsible for, and we should be using state savings from our self-imposed spending cap to pay down our outstanding debt. We should be using one-time payments from settlement money for debt and capital purposes. And I hope that as we continue the process and the budget gets finalized, that we will be taking this in consideration and finally looking to not just throw money at this debt service fund, but actually look to pay down the debt for future generations in our state. Thank you.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 92, noes 33.
The bill is passed. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. If we could return to page 30 of the main calendar, we're going to begin consenting, starting with calendar number 271 by Ms. Paulin.
Assembly Number 7181, Calendar 271, Ms. Paulin, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect on the 120th day.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 115, noes 5.
The bill is passed.
Assembly Number 7188A, Calendar 272, Ms. Glick, an act to amend the education law and the public health law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
The clerk will record the vote.
Mr. Speaker, will you withdraw the roll call and lay the bill aside, please?
Roll call is withdrawn. The bill is laid aside.
Assembly 7191, Calendar 273, Ms. Simotas, an act to amend the Social Services Law.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly 7212, Calendar 274, Ms. Joyner, an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Law.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly 7226A, Calendar 275, Ms. Gunther, an act to amend the Executive Law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 117, noes 1.
The bill is passed.
Assembly Number 7254, Calendar 276, Mr. Delan, an act to amend the Criminal Procedure Law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 116, noes 3.
The bill is passed.
Assembly Number 7257B, Calendar 277, Ms. Titus, an act to amend the labor law.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly Number 7260A, Calendar 278, Ms. Russell, an act to amend the executive law.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly Number 7292B, Calendar 279, Mr. Farrell, an act to amend the state finance law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 121, noes 0.
The bill is passed.
Assembly Number 7303A, Calendar 280, Ms. Nolan, an act to amend Chapter 56 of the laws of 2015.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly Number 7320, Calendar 281, Ms. Weinstein, an act to amend the civil practice law and rules.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly Number 7351, Calendar 282, Mr. Gottfried, an act to amend the public health law.
The bill is laid aside.
Assembly Number 7374, Calendar 283, Mr. Pichardo, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 123, noes 1.
The bill is passed.
Assembly Number 7392, Calendar 284, Ms. Simon, an act to amend the election law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect immediately.
Clerk will record the vote.